Hello friends and welcome into NBA Now. I am your host Tom Downey. You can follow me on Twitter at WhatGoingDowney for more NBA and all kinds of sports takes. On today's show we're taking a look at what the Houston Rockets have done this offseason and handing out some grades for what seemed like was going to be a pretty quiet offseason and then got pretty wild not that long ago. Of course, the big one, you guys already all know about it, Chris Paul and picks go to Oklahoma City, and Russell Westbrook comes over to rejoin with James Harden. That's the big one. That's not where we'll focus right away, though. Houston did make some re-signings, but we'll start things off with the draft, where Houston didn't do anything. They had no picks. They had some talks about moving up, ended up not doing that. They did, though, make some notable undrafted free agent signings. William McDowell-White, Shamorie, maybe the biggest name of that group, coming out of St. John's, and hasn't done too much this offseason. And then Chris Clemons, who we'll get to. But for Pons, with Summer League over for Houston here, 7.2 points per game. I thought he was going to get drafted, and then I think the three-point percentage shows why Pons ended up not being selected. Just 22.7% from deep, especially for a team like Houston. That's just not going to cut it. But the biggest, maybe surprise or most impressive player for Houston was Chris Clemons, the kid out of Campbell. Look, he is the third highest scorer in NCAA D1 basketball history. He's only 5'9". That didn't stop him. Almost 21 points per game, 43% from deep. We saw Gary Clark last year go from Summer League standout to contributing to the Houston Rockets. Maybe that happens again with Clemons. Yes, he's undersized, but if you can shoot, there's going to be a role for you in Mike D'Antoni's system. Now, speaking of the Summer League, how many games did you watch? It doesn't have to just be Houston games. It could be any game. For example, the other day, I closely watched the Celtics-Grizzlies game, which was a blowout, and then I turned it off because Celtics were up by like 30 at that point. But how many games did you watch? 1, 0, 2, 3, 4? Let me know in the comments section. Meaningless points awarded to whomever watched the most. But of course, the big move the Houston Rockets made was the Russell Westbrook trade. The Rockets get Russ. The Thunder, meanwhile, get Chris Paul, a 2024 first-round pick, a 2026 first-round pick with some top 4 protection, so it could end up being a lottery potentially, and then pick swaps in 2021 and in 2025, which the Thunder probably aren't going to end up using. So who won the Russ CP3 trade? Type R for the Rockets and type T for the Thunder. I get that it makes sense for the Thunder to ship off Russ. They were trying to rebuild there. And there is the potentiality that those picks later on in like 2024 could actually end up being pretty high selections. But for me, I think the Rockets won this trade. Yeah, whatever, those picks could end up being a Brooklyn Nets type disaster scenario. But for the Rockets, you are in win now mode. Your window is right now. And Russell Westbrook is a better player right now than Chris Paul, and it's certainly a better contract. So for the Rockets to get Russell Westbrook, I think it was a smart pickup. And yes, I understand the potential downside here, the risks that you're certainly taking. I don't know how great of a fit Harden and Russell Westbrook are going to be together. Like, Russell is not an off-ball shooter. Both Russ and Harden need the ball in their hands. That was also true for CP3, but CP3 was a better three-point shooter this past couple of years than Russell Westbrook has been. But for Houston, and you gotta know Daryl Morey's MO for sure, has always been, I am committed to just adding star talent, and we'll figure it out from there. That was definitely the case with the addition of Russell Westbrook here. Almost 23 points per game, 11 rebounds per game, almost 11 assists. Now, I do think those raw numbers come back down to earth. I don't think Russell put up a triple-double. I also think it's at least a little bit funny that we've gone from the Rockets fans saying the triple-doubles don't matter, Harden was more effective, that's why he should have won MVP, and now it's kind of come back around full circle there. The money does get expensive for Russ, 38.5 this year up to 47. That was kind of the same thing, though, with Chris Paul. And if you're asking me which contract I'd rather have, it's a no-brainer. Give me the Russell Westbrook contract every single time over Chris Paul. So yes, when we get to 2024 and 2025 and 2026, if Houston regresses or if the Harden-Russell duo by then is kind of at the end of their career, that pick might not look that great, and it might end up looking bad on the Rockets. But this was a win-now move, and from that perspective, I like it. I think that's the best thing the Rockets could have done. Look, they wanted to find a way to get Jimmy Butler. That ended up not happening. I thought Houston was going to have a bland offseason. Instead, they get creative there and add Russ. Now, if you're a Houston Rockets fan, you need a new jersey, right? Here's how you can get one. Head over to chatsports.com/NBA now. Use that promo code CHATNBA. Again, chatsports.com/NBA now. Promo code CHATNBA. Sign up and deposit. Then place your first bet. After you do that, email promo@chatsports.com. And we'll hook you guys up with a jersey. And if you're not a Houston fan, that's fine. There you need an Anthony Davis one. LeBron's going to stick with 23, so not yet on that front there. But Luka, Joel, whatever you guys want there, email promo@chatsports.com. Once you sign up and deposit and place your first bet using chatsports.com/NBA now, promo code CHATNBA, and we'll get you guys hooked up with a great deal. Back to the Rockets' actual free agency moves, because technically Russell Westbrook isn't free agency, but kind of feels like it is, because it came during free agency period. Houston, though, did re-sign players. House, one of those guys, a 3-year, $11 million total deal with Houston. I think that makes sense. I know he's not the biggest household name, especially if you're not a Houston fan, but he shot almost 42% from deep. Guess what Houston needs? When you've got Harden and Russ on your team, just shooters. Shooters everywhere. And if House can put up similar numbers this year, that 3-year, $11 million deal, that ends up being, if not at least fair, maybe even really good value for the Houston Rockets. Let's move then to Gerald Green, who is once again going to stick around with Houston. A 1-year deal, should be about for the vet minimum. Gerald Green, he is who he is at this point, right? He's a streaky scorer, not quite the same freak jumper he was in his prime, but he can still catch fire. We know how much he likes being in Houston. That's where he wants to be. I didn't think he was ever going to leave to re-sign anywhere else. But again, Gerald Green coming off about 9 points per game last year. He's not going to be a ball-dominant guy. The assist numbers very clearly indicate that. But if he continues to shoot about 35% from deep, the native son is a good bench piece for Houston. That's all he's going to be at this point in his career. But if he's your 9th-ish, 8th man, depending on how Houston uses the rotation this year, that's pretty good value. Also coming back to the Houston Rockets, Austin Rivers. He has re-signed on a 2-year, $4.54 million deal. Now, this deal isn't just a 2-year deal. First year is worth $2.17 million. The second season is a player option. And I'll make note, the claim was that Rivers passed on more money elsewhere to re-sign. I will make note, though, every single time a player re-signs with a contender, there's almost always the report of, oh, you know what, hey, guess what? I took less money to stay here. I don't know if I truly believe that. Maybe a team was offering the mid-level, but Rivers, I think, does make sense for when Harden and or Russ need a breather. Rivers can come in and be that extra ball handler. Now, he's not going to be the guy that I think he was supposed to be. He's never going to be that elite player, but as a bench backup point guard / shooting guard, because he can up that number just a little bit, that'd be great. I think there's some value there. All right, folks, do you guys like Chat Sports? Well, if you do, make sure you are subscribed. The link is below, but you're watching on YouTube, so just hit that big red button. We don't just do NBA stuff, by the way. All kinds of NFL coverage with training camp coming back up. That'll get ramped up, and of course, we'll keep doing NBA for you too. So if you like Chat Sports, and especially if it's your first time watching, well, go ahead and subscribe. We do all kinds of great stuff here on the channel. Move then to a non-re-signing. The 2 non-re-signings the Rockets made in free agency. Anthony Bennett is back. League done for. Rockets going to go all the way. I'm, of course, kidding you just a little bit. But Bennett agreed to a non-guaranteed 1-year deal. Hasn't actually played in the NBA since 2017. I will make note, though, for Bennett. He actually played fairly well in limited time in the G League last season. Now, yes, Anthony Bennett will forever remain one of the biggest busts in the NBA, but in 25 games last year for the Clippers G League team, he put up 12 points per game, 4.5 rebounds, and here's the big one, 45% from deep. If Anthony Bennett can shoot, if he can be a stretch 4, maybe he does make the roster. I'm not saying he's suddenly going to become the #1 overall pick value, but the biggest issue for Bennett was that he didn't have a three-point shot. Seems like he has one now. If that carries over to camp and to preseason and all that, maybe there is space for Bennett on an NBA roster once again. Bennett, of course, though, is one of the biggest NBA draft busts ever, unless this time with the Rockets really changes that narrative. he's going to go down as one of the biggest ones. But who is the biggest one? Bennett, I think, makes sense. Greg Oden is in there. I always vote for Darko Milicic just because of who else was in that draft. That's always my pick. But let me know what you guys think in the comments section. Another re-signing, one that I like maybe more than all the other ones, and that's Tyson Chandler. 1 year, $2.5 million. That's the vet min, but it's more expensive because Chandler's an old dude right now. But he's still a decent enough defender and rebounder. He's not going to start for Houston. That's obviously going to be Clint Capella, who is back for at least one more year with Houston. But if you need 10, 15-ish minutes per game, max, I think, by the way, to just give you some defense and his classic tip-out rebounding style that just works every time, it seems like, Chandler makes sense. He's not going to be a starter. If Capella goes down, Houston is in big trouble when it comes to their backup center role and just the center role in general. But for a veteran that knows Harden and knows Russ, I think it makes sense. And look, cheap 1 year deal doesn't really force Houston to go over the cap by any means. Again, vet min, I think it makes sense. So here is the Rockets' current lineup. Of course, the starting five is the key there. Russ, Harden, Gordon, Tucker, and Capella. I kind of think that's top 10 in the NBA. We're going to do a top 10 video later on, but I'm going to push for them to be in there. The bench is really led by Austin Rivers and House, and we'll see how the rest of those players end up contributing in the end. Last question for you guys. What grade do you give the Houston Rockets offseason? You see mine there at the bottom. I give it a B+, not quite an A. Still a good offseason overall for Houston. This wasn't quite elite enough. I think they did a good job overall. There is the possibility that those picks down the road end up being really valuable, and the Thunder, when we look back 10 years from now, say, wow, they did a great job winning that trade. But for Houston, going all in to win right now, that's their goal. That's what they have Harden and Russ for. I give it a B+. Certainly not a loser like they were before the Russell Westbrook trade. But let me know what you guys think in the comments section.